Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I step out the door and deliver an episode to you while I walk around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon and good morning, listeners. It's a lovely warm day here in suburban Chicago, and boy, oh boy, is it full of cicadas. I'm walking carefully to avoid stepping on them, but oh man, there are so many. It's gonna be a gross day. The birds are sure enjoying it though, very tasty. Well, it's been a little bit since I talked to you. I had a week of finals and graduation, and I officiated a wedding. Now I'm back. I'm gonna get as many episodes. I think I'm gonna try to do 5 episodes this week, 1 every day. And the goal of that is to get to the point where I've set myself up to be able to broadcast through next week. Next week's going to be very busy for my family as well. My daughter is graduating high school, and we have a whole slew of family activities planned. They're going to mean I don't get a lot of work done, and I do get a lot of fun done, but I don't get a lot of podcasting time. So we'll see if I can come up with 5 topics to record over the next 5 days so that the episodes can be racked and stacked and ready for broadcast. Well, I'm taking the easy way out today. Today, our first episode of the week is going to be a board game espresso episode. That's right, it's a board game espresso triple shot. So in the board game espresso episode, I pick out 3 games that I've played recently for the first time and 1 game that I've dusted off, and I talk about them a little bit here on the show. I'll give you a little bit of insight to what the games are like, and I'll share with you what I think of them. Once again, these are a quick review segment, so I generally don't have deep thoughts on the games, but I can give you an idea of what they are and whether they're worth playing. As always, I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts about these games or any other games you've been playing recently. You can always share those thoughts with me over on Board Game Geek and Guild 3269. So why don't we jump right in. Our first game of the podcast is a simple party game from the Exploding Kittens group, and that is Really Loud Librarians. I picked this up at a Goodwill. It is the kind of game that's pretty fun once in a while. I wouldn't want to play it a lot, and I could see why if you had it as your main game in your collection, you probably wouldn't play it all that often either. It was designed by Ian Clayman, Ken Gruhl, and Quentin Weir, and published by Exploding Kittens. It has the signature oatmeal style artwork, so when you look at the game, you really know, oh yeah, that's an Exploding Kittens game. So how's it work? The game comes with some pretty nice components, a dual layered board with a sort of track that runs around in a circle, and on that track are a series of letters. They're not random, and it's not every letter in the alphabet, or they are random in order, and it's not every letter on the alphabet, but more the common letters. There's also a couple spots where it's like more than 1 letter and you can pick one to use. And then you have this cutout piece which shows a sort of hilarious librarian. And you have this weird set of 2 plastic rings on a swivel. And so the way the game works, there are 3 plastic rings on a swivel. So you put the librarian into the plastic rings, into the first of the plastic rings, and then you set the whole contraption into the track. And now what happens is when you slide the contraption along the track, the two rings the librarian isn't in are covering, maybe 3 rings, are covering letters on the track, circling them. And then that tells you which letters are active for this round. And then it is essentially a brainstorming or listing style game in the spirit of something like Tapple, except it's a team game where you're trying to get as many answers as you can. So I guess it's more like Mr. Lister's Quiz Shootout is probably the closest game I can think of in terms of playtime or play style. Anyway, so what you do in the game is you draw a category, and then your team, oh my gosh, there's so many cicadas. Ugh. So you draw a category, and then your team is trying to name as many things that fit into that category as they can, as quickly as they can. And then the things they have to name have to start with the letter that is circled by the librarian, and then you move the librarian apparatus up to the letter you used. So for example, if you have the librarian sitting in the track, and the letters that are available are N, D, and A, and it says name a city, somebody says Albuquerque, then you move the librarian up so it's covering the A, And now the circles are surrounding 3 different letters. You continue that way until the time runs out. And then you see how far around the track did you get. The game comes with a once around the track or twice around the track meter, so that because if you're going really well, you could get pretty far around the track, even more than once. You mark where you got to, and then it's the other team's turn. Generally, I think you take 2 turns, and whichever team got farther wins. It's a pretty simple game. Takes about 10 minutes to play. It's the kind of game you would want to play a bunch of times, I think. And it's a fun, silly thing. It doesn't feel that much different than like any other kind of speed listing game. The team element is neat, and the components are amusing. The theme, yeah, take it or leave it. Who cares? They're really loud librarians. I don't even understand that. I guess it's a memorable title. So that's Really Loud Librarians, published by the Exploding Kittens Company. Next up, we have the party game of the moment. I've heard numerous podcasts and other luminaries bring this game up, and with good reason. It's pretty fun. This is the very simple deck of cards party game. That's not a hat. That's not a hat. Like I said, it's a simple deck of cards with little sort of iconographic shapes on them. The drawings are pretty simple. They look like they're kind of done by hand. They're not super elaborate. And the idea is that everybody can kind of tell what they are. This game is designed, by the way, by Casper Lapp and published in the US by Ravensburger. On your turn, at the beginning of the game, everybody gets a card, and that card is face up in front of them, showing the object that they have in front of them. Then one person draws another card, shows everybody what it is, flips it face down, and gives it away to somebody else. That person says thank you for the thing they just got, and then gives away flips the other card that they had, which was previously face down, and gives that away to somebody else. Now, who you give it to, it's one of your neighbors. It'll have an arrow on the card that tells you that. And when you give the card away, you say what it is. So if you show everyone a toaster, then you flip the card over and you say, this is a toaster, and you give it to somebody. They say thank you. The trick of the game is, as it goes along, it gets harder and harder to remember what each card is. Sometimes you forget what the card in front of you is. Sometimes you forget what cards other people have. And so what happens is, over time, you're saying, this is a toaster, this is a hammer, this is a tool belt, this is a sandwich. And at some point you'll forget what the card is, or you might forget what the card is. At which point then you tell the person what the thing is, and they might not believe you. Either they know that you're wrong, or they think maybe you're wrong. Either way, now they have a decision to make. Do they accept the thing that you've offered, or do they refuse it? If they accept it, then they just say thank you, and now they're stuck with this thing, and they're not 100% sure what it is. Now, they might remember from before you got it what it was, so even though you told them one thing, they were wrong, and they're wrong, but you would take it anyway. You shouldn't do that, but you could. Or more likely, you don't know what it is either, but you're not willing to challenge them on it, so you take it too. Then you give away your thing, and the game keeps going. Eventually, someone will think that the card they're getting is not what's on the card, and they'll say, that's not a hat, or that's not a hot dog, or whatever the person just says it was. Then you flip it over. Whoever was wrong takes the card as a penalty, and it goes into their display. Then after that, the person who took the penalty draws a new card and starts the next round. That's how it goes. The game goes until somebody has 3 penalties in front of them, and then the person or persons with the fewest penalty cards in front of them wins the game. Like I said, it takes about 10 minutes, maybe 15 if you have a big group, and it's pretty fun. I mean, it's a dumb, goofy memory game, but it's amusing and easy to play, really easy to teach. It's a good starter or ender for the night. The one caveat I have, and I discovered this in one of my plays recently, is that if you have a group of people, especially in a line, who are not inclined to challenge the card at all, then you get this weird thing where they pass the cards back and forth and nobody ever takes a penalty or challenges anything. And that's not fun. In part because you win by the person who has the fewest penalties wins, and there's no way to gain points. By doing nothing, you can stay tied for first, or almost nothing. Especially one person in between 2 people who are not inclined to take action. That person in the middle can get a long way. So that part is very frustrating. That part is frustrating because of that bad experience. So That's Not a Hat is that game. It's pretty fun. I recommend trying it if you get a chance. Well worth your time. I want to talk about a game I revisited recently. This is Strike. Strike is a fun little dice rolling game. Some people call it the theme of the game is it's a battle. The dice are gladiators battling in an arena. The reality is you're rolling dice into a bowl and you're trying to have the dice come up as pairs. Whenever you roll a die into a bowl or dice into the bowl, you get a pair. So the way the game works is you roll a die into the bowl. If it comes up as the same result as one of the other dice in the bowl, then you get to take both of those dice out and you score them. And then your turn is over. If you don't make a match, you can then take another die and roll that into the bowl too. Try to make a match with one or more of the dice that are in there. If that doesn't work, then you do it again. You keep doing it until either you choose to stop, you take some dice out of the bowl because you made a match, or you run out of dice. If you run out of dice, you're out of the game. If you take some dice out of the bowl, your turn is over. Next person's turn. If you happen to clear all the dice out of the bowl, like you roll in there and you get a pair and there are only the 2 dice in there, then you take all the dice out and the next player has to roll all their dice in. And so if they don't get any pairs when they roll all their dice in, they lose. And the game goes until there's only one winner left. Strike is a silly game. Oh, the last thing is the dice you're rolling have sides 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and X. No matter what, if you roll an X, that die is lost. And I think we take that die out of, that die leaves the game if you roll an X, which is not fun when it's your die. But that's Strike. It's a silly game, not very complicated, pretty easy to play, pretty fast to play. If you play with a group of like 5 or 6, maybe it takes 15 minutes. But of course it does have the downside of people getting eliminated, but that's okay. It's really short. 15 is actually probably an exaggeration. Maybe with 6 people it would take that long, but chances are it would take less. So that's Strike. I did not look up the designer on that one. It's been published a number of times. I have an older copy with the dark purple color. They do make a new edition. It actually was just reprinted sometime in the last the last year. And so you certainly could get a more recent copy if you were so inclined. The designer is Dieter Nuble, and it's published by Ravensburger. All right, finally, the last game I have to talk about today is Wild Serengeti. And you notice I didn't just say Wild Serengeti, I said Wild Serengeti. I guess it's because without saying colon, I don't know how to pronounce a colon, but that's what it is. Wild Serengeti has a colon, which I presume suggests there might be other games later that follow a similar pattern. As far as I know, there weren't any published, but that's okay. The game is published by, the designer is Gung Ho Kim, with artists Hani Huang and Sophia Kang, published by Bad Comet, and I believe it was a Kickstarter game. I picked it up at Goodwill. And, you know, it's a winner for my family. It was long, but we really had a good time, and we're definitely going to keep it and try it again. So in Wild Serengeti, you are a nature photographer. You're trying to develop a documentary about the Serengeti by filming lots of cool animals in the Serengeti and figuring out where they are and what they look like. You can take actions, and those actions let you spend resources to put creatures out onto the board, different animals. There are maybe 12 different animals in the game, and each of those animal types comes with a different meeple or a little wooden cutout of the animal type, and you're arranging them on this habitat board that has 4 different types of habitat. There's meadow, there's forest, there's rocks, and there's water. And the animals can all go on any of the parts, but what you're trying to do is get them into an arrangement where you can complete a shot. So you have these cards, or a scene. You have these cards that represent scenes from your documentary that you're trying to get. And so when you find animals in a particular arrangement, you can complete the scene, and that will help you score points at the end. But the scenes also provide you bonuses, and those bonuses become the engine of the game. So as you solve scenes, you can get these bonuses, and some of the bonuses are end game scoring. So completing those scenes doesn't help your in-game engine, but it does help keep the points high. Other cards will give you more resources, and there are a number of different resources that you can use. Or they'll let you draw more cards, or they sort of, speed up other things in the game. So there's an element of doing things gives you the efficiency to do more things. And as such, your momentum builds over the course of the game. The game ran a little bit long for us. It has to do with the number of times that you go through a particular thing. As I recall, in a 4-player game, you go through it twice. I think in a 2-player game, you would go through it once, or 3 times, I mean. And the idea is that you are getting more and more of these scenes completed and thus gaining points. The art in Wild Serengeti is pretty good. It's not amazing, but it looks nice and makes you want to play the game more. The components, the wooden pieces for the animals look really nice. The rest of the components are fine. Nothing amazing, but nothing that stands out as bad either. I think this game definitely feels like a Kickstarter in that it probably needed a little more development. It's not as smooth as it could be, and that shows. But at the same time, it's pretty well made. It's entertaining. The rulebook is pretty clear. I was able to understand the game from reading the rulebook and teach the game from reading the rulebook. And I only had to look up a few things online, although I do recall that some of those things felt pretty significant in terms of gaps. All in all, though, Wild Serengeti is a pretty great experience as a gameplay. We had a fun time of it. In the long run, I don't see it's not going to be a favorite game, but it's certainly been one we hang on to for a while and play occasionally because it's amusing and cute and a fun game about animals in the wild without involving actually like killing the animals in the wild, which is nice. So that's Wild Serengeti. Well, those are 3 games I played recently and 1 game I dusted off. I'm keen to hear from you. What are some games you played recently? Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know your thoughts about games that you've played. What games might you like to play in the future? Which of these games have you played? What are your opinions about these games that you've played? It gets very complicated very quick, but I'd love to hear from you. If you want to send me a message, the easiest way to do that is to send a message to Wombat929 on Board Game Geek. You could also send me an email, Brendan@Rattlebox Games, or you can post in our forum, Board Game Geek Guild 3269. Any of those things should get to me, and I would love to hear from you, your thoughts about the show, and particularly about what I talked about today. Well, thanks for joining me in my walk today. I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.